The U.S. I put this slide up mostly just as a way of suggesting that the U.S. is a leading market or production market for thin film for thin film modules. A note about our methodology: SunPower is not included in here, even though that's where all the smart people work in the U.S. But they actually manufacture their stuff in the Philippines. So they're included in our rest of world or Asian category. But so for manufacturing, we do this by where the manufacturing plants are located, and in the U.S. More than half of the production is now thin film, and more than half of the world's thin film is produced in the United States. So for those of you that haven't really explored the issue of thin film, if you're not from the United States, you can be forgiven because it really is much more of a phenomenon there. But certainly the dominance and the economics of First Solar are getting a lot of people's attention, and we'll talk about some of that. This is the same chart from earlier, but the thing to note here is, I don't know how to do the pointer. Oh, there it is the amount of cell and module production capacity far exceeds the amount of polysilicon that's going to be available. So when I say that polysilicon is still a gating factor on manufacturing, this is what I mean. At the end of 2008, there will be over 10 gigawatts of wafer cell module capacity online. And there's no way that there will be enough polysilicon to match that. So again, back to the things that you need to think about: how much polysilicon is out there and how many thin film modules can be produced in terms of total supply. You also need to think about what the average selling prices are for these things. And this is a very hard concept, especially for people who focused on the Spanish market in the last year or so, because people are seeing very different prices in Spain than for a global module ASP. There are a lot of ways that ASPs vary. They vary over size of customer. They vary over when the modules are going to be delivered. They vary over the technology type. They deliver over the size of the order. All kinds of things. Currency of denomination. And so there's a multi-factor range of things. And if you look at sort of the marginal demand in Spain today and the price modules are being purchased at to get them in ahead of the September 28th expiry of the last feed-in tariff, you're going to be at the very right hand of most of those distributional factors. So don't look at that and think that that's what the global module ASPs are. They're substantially lower than that. And our forecast at the beginning of the year, which I left up on the slide, is that module ASPs globally, including thin film, because you have to average thin film in, for this, is below $3 a watt ASP. We probably missed that call. It's probably going to be another quarter or maybe two before that happens. But we'll know a lot more at the end of the day when we think about demand, because if you think about supply and demand and module price, these three have to kind of work in concert. And if you know two of the three, you can probably get some transparency into the third. The silicon supply issue, to think about that side. Clearly, the silicon supply has been tight since 2005. There's a lot of profit being made, and therefore there's a lot of competition coming in. We have some historical numbers on how much poly was produced and a methodology to try to correct for where it goes. Some of it goes into the semi-manufacturing, the IC market, and then some of it comes back in the form of recycling. There's a little bit of excess production, some inventory effects that need to be put in there to reconcile the amount of polysilicon that's available for the solar industry. And then you adjust for how many grams per watt throughout the total production chain, and you can get to some megawatt equivalence available supply, and then with some other conversions, you can get to megawatts of modules. Prices, silicon pricing. Obviously, everybody knows that silicon pricing has gone up a lot, and the spot market for silicon is extremely high. A lot of people are talking about $300, $400 a kilogram for their polysilicon. I think that those are false benchmarks. The reason is that anybody who's doing $400 per kilogram for 100% of their poly would have something like $3.60 worth of poly in their module before they ever did any ingot, wafer, cell, or module. So I think that the most important thing to think about here is the average poly cost in modules and the degree to which certain manufacturers with certain cost structures and their willingness to forego profits for some period of time might be willing to pay a higher total embedded or average polysilicon cost. Hours of fun, table games to figure out who's paying what for poly. I'll give you my email if you want to send me an anonymous tip on what you're paying. We just finished, a couple of months ago, we finished our new 2008 forecast for polysilicon production. Again, this is the same methodology that you saw on the earlier slide with a couple of exceptions, and you'll get lots of time with these slides later to kind of go through them. And the reason that we put them up in such detail is so that you have enough material to work with in terms of making your own assessments. At least you've got an internally complete and comprehensive analysis, and you can make your own assessments about what you think the efficiency of use is, or what the new supply is going to be on the various categories, or what your discount factor is for the announcements, and et cetera. And you can make your own assessments. But we wanted to put all this information up in the beginning. The net of it is that there's three categories of polysilicon producers. There's those that do it now, which would be what I call the big seven, two in Europe, 2 in the US, and 3 in Japan. And then there's a number of people that are trying to get into the business, call it new entrants using current technologies. So they're either using a Siemens or a FBR process, but they have a pretty well understood technology pathway. And then there's new entrants with alternative technologies. And so we add up all of those, and then we discount for the difficulties of getting this done. Either multiple plants and not all of them will be completed, or some of them won't get the financing that they need, or some other, as my grandmother used to say, if it ain't one damn thing, it's another. And so you have to discount for that damn thing or another to get to some meaningful estimate of what you think polysilicon production is going to be. We show, and then you have to pull out semiconductor demand and the recycling back from there. We believe that by 2012, 125,000 tons of poly will be available for solar, which if you convert it at what we think the grams per watt will be in 2012 would get you to over 16 gigawatts of cell capacity. Now that's just polysilicon-based cells, and these numbers have gone up a little bit in the 2010 to 2012 timeframe from what we thought last year, but not a lot. A lot of this is we have very good transparency into the manufacturing plants.